How well do you know your state?
Let's find out.
Originally, I was gonna do urban legends of Pennsylvania for this, but I then found this one story ended up having Thanksgiving in it. So, because of that, I decided to just. I decided to just go with this one.
Okay.
So, it's called Witchcraft and Murder in Hex Hollow.
Hex Hollow.
Hex Hollow. It's in York, PA. York County. Yeah. So, if you walk the roads in Hex Hollow in the right sequence on Halloween night, you will pass through the gates of hell. You'll know the place because the trees will grow thick above your head and the woods are dark even at the brightest times of day. It's said that there are places here where the sun has never touched the ground. Hex Hollow, also known as Spring Valley Park and Raymeyer's Hollow, is in
I've heard of Spring Valley.
Southern York County.
Okay.
It's a maze of trails and dirt roads twisting in and out of each other, paths cut randomly through the vegetation. So this is written by a different person. Like, written by one person. So it's in first person.
Okay.
So this has nothing to do with me, obviously.
Right.
As a boy, I would spend an entire day hiking, climbing, crossing streams, trying to learn the trails just as I had first learned stories of this haunted place. There's a lonely grave in Hex Hollow, marked with a pentagram. Nelson Raymeyer, a black magician, is buried. Men were murdered in his house. On some nights, the moon casts light upon Raymeyer's specter wandering his lands. But most people I have found do not like to speak of Hex Hollow's legend or truth. When asked about it, they give short answers or none at all. Most of the area is a county park now, but it's not well used, partly because it's off the beaten path, but mostly because it's Hex Hollow. It's not easy to find, but you know it when you're there. The world becomes a little darker. How much darker it must have been in 1928 when the Hollow's one resident was Nelson D. Raymeyer. A loner, well, over 6 feet tall, deep-set eyes, and a powerful presence. Raymeyer was married, but his wife lived outside the Hollow because he was, in her words, quote, too damn peculiar. Raymeyer was what is commonly called in the area as a powwow doctor. They were also called brewwalkers, or, in a more negative light, hexenmeisters, or just hexers. Strong tradition of faith healing and folk magic continues even this day among the Pennsylvania Germans. While searching, and no map.
Can we just talk about that for a second?
What?
You said Pennsylvania Germans.
Yeah.
Not Pennsylvania Dutch.
That's what it said in the book.
So, all you non-Pennsylvanians, Pennsylvania Dutch are not Dutch, they are German.
With some searching and no maps, my wife Allison and I found the Raymeyer house. There is not much peculiar about the place itself, but there is certainly something about the old farm that people pick up on. Perhaps it is the uninviting angle at which the house sits or the neglected outbuildings that surround it. There's no witch's grave here, no pentagrams, and few hex signs, which are a common sight in these parts. The only outwardly witchy feature of the house is that the red 13 painted on one of the barns. Yet Hex Hollow has a feeling that Allison likens to a graveyard, peaceful and quiet, but with an undercurrent of foreboding. In Raymeyer's time, there were hundreds of informal powwow practitioners throughout this area. One was named John Limer, a sickly and sad man from a family of brewwalkers who traced their spiritual lineage back to Pennsylvania's most famous witch, Mountain Mary. But John could keep none of his powwow patients. I don't know what that means.
What?
Powwow patients or powwow practitioners.
So
I don't know what a powwow is.
Okay. Powwow? Are we talking about the same powwow as in Native American powwow?
Part of me hopes not.
We are. So, it turns out that powwow was appropriated from the Algonquin language in the 17th century by missionaries from New England, or in New England. It says, evidence suggests that the term was applied to the Pennsylvania Dutch out of the perceived similarity in ritual healing consistent of healing purposes. The term powwow became associated with the title of the English edition of celebrated manual of ritual procedures entitled Powwow, Your Long Lost Friend, written by John George Homan. It was first published in German in Reading, Pennsylvania. Yeah, and it's pronounced brosh. Brosh.
Brauche.
I think. So yeah. We are talking about the same powwow as the Native Americans, unfortunately. And it was indeed appropriated from one of the tribes that originated over here on the East Coast and then got pushed out to the West Coast because settlers. Okay, bye.
Because it seems like they're using powwow in this
So,
sense.
okay, it's probably, I would guess, so I think they just gave a name to black magic people. Powwow.
After powwow doctor, it basically means that he's a hexer,
Mm.
which makes me think that they took powwow from the Native American powwows and all the spirituality that they practiced and called him. He was reduced to working in a York cigar factory. Mr. John Limer.
Mr. Blank.
Yes. He could figure out no explanation for his hardship, save perhaps the answer obvious to some people with background. He must have been hexed. Limer visited every powwow doctor, witch, and faith healer in the area, trying to get his hex broken. He had no luck until he found Nellie Knoll, aka the River Witch. After many visits and payments to Knoll, she revealed the source of Limer's curse. Nelson D. Ramier of Ramier's Hollow. Knoll told Limer that the only way he could break the curse was to get a lock of Ramier's hair, or his hex book, or both, and bury them 6 feet down. Finally, Blamer had a reason for his plight. He quickly enlisted 2 teenage boys, John Curry and Wilbert Hess, to help rectify it. Both boys came from families who had fallen on hard times, and it didn't take much for Blamer to convince them that they were too cursed, and that Nelson D. Ramier was the source. On a dark and rainy November night in 1928, the 3 went to confront Ramier. The old man invited them in, and the men stayed up late, talking of many things. Ramier asked them to stay the night. They went upstairs to sleep, while his 3 guests slept downstairs. In the early morning, Limer tried to convince Curry and Hess to go down to the basement to find Ramier's hex book. But no way were the boys going into a dark basement for a book of devil's curses. After Ramier fed them breakfast, the trio left. They returned the following night, and this time Blamer was determined to get the hex book. It took all 3 of them, Limer, Curry, and Hess, to wrestle the powerful Ramier to the ground. When they failed to give up the book, they tied a rope around his neck and beat him to death. Upon hearing his death rattle, Blamer exclaimed, "Thank God, the witch is dead." Even with Ramier dead, the trio could not muster up the courage to descend into his basement to look for the hex book. Instead, they decided to burn the body and the house. They poured lamp oil over the corpse and the floor, set them ablaze, and left. Ramier's nearest neighbor found his body 2 days later, on Thanksgiving. Hex Hollow still feels lonesome and cold. Places seem to take on elements of their reputation. Most people don't know the real story of the place, but they know to stay away from it, especially at night. They know it is associated with witchcraft and murder. I spent a lot of time there. Now I know all of the paths. I know there's no black magician, but I'm still searching. After all, there are tales of Ramier's wandering ghosts to explore. Those were written by Timothy Renner.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond.
So, was he a witch?
What?
Do you think he was a witch? Dr. Nelson? Or do you think he was just a guy?
Okay. I don't believe in magic per se. But I do think he could have conjured or brought something through to a different to our plane of existence from another. And then like, because there's this thing, I don't know if it's voodoo, I could be wrong. There's like practices of like obtaining somebody's lock of hair or obtaining somebody's piece of clothing,
I think that.
and then you use it in the ritual, and then whatever you bring through is like a bloodhound.
Well, I
It'll
don't know if
sniff.
that's like just voodoo.
No, it's a bunch of different, but it'll sniff the item and then go attach itself to the person involved with that item.
Yeah, I think that's just
This is how
probably like any sort of witchcraft. Like that's just
this
like
is witchcraft.
like whenever you think of witchcraft, you think of I need somebody's lock of hair, or I need dirt, or like something. Like there was a guy in prison who practiced voodoo. That he requested a block of dirt for his last meal.
Yeah.
Because he needed to perform this ritual so his spirit, once he got executed, that his soul would move on instead of becoming a ghost. And they denied him it. But like they just need like kind of random, probably not random
seemingly
to me,
random items.
Yeah.
But
the only like explanation of this guy's a witch is that
he lives alone.
Yeah, I couldn't find out why he was a witch.
The Hex dude, I don't know, have beef with the accused witch? Like, was there any issues going on between them? I don't remember. It's too involved in that coffee.
It seems like he was also a powwow practitioner. Maybe they were kind of
butting heads.
Yeah.
Well, but the guy lives alone, so it's not like he would stand off into the spot. He just seems like okay. Well, my honest, I think it's just a hermit, and there might be more to the story. You know, this is like hundreds of years old.
Yeah.
Might be more to the story. This might have not happened at all. I think it was just an old hermit. A guy who just wanted to be alone.
Well, this Vladimir guy and the two teenagers that he hired to go kill this guy. Raymer let them in and asked them to stay the night. It's not like they were trespassing. So seems like a nice guy. And then when they're like, hey, give me your hex book, this guy's like, I don't have a hex book. So they just killed him anyway. It was unfortunate.
I mean, they just want to be left alone.
Yeah. Because this Vladimir guy said that he was reduced to working at a cigar factory. And he couldn't figure out why he was down on his luck. So he went to a powwow doctor because he thought that he was hexed for bad luck. Paid this lady to tell him what he wanted to hear. And she told him to get all these different things so he wouldn't be hexed anymore. Makes so much sense. He fed them breakfast too, and they came back the day after and killed this.
Yeah, it's just another thing.